Hello. If you can see and hear me, let me know. Hello, hello, hello. If you can see and hear me, let me know. Put something in the chat box if you can see and hear me. Put something in the chat box if you can see and hear me. What is going on? What is going on? Can y'all see and hear me? I didn't even get a YouTube alert, actually. Can y'all see and hear me? Tonight is going to be good because tonight I am doing a live version of Hustle Talks. So, you know, we'll have some gems, but we'll also be talking raw insight, which I absolutely love to do. Yazzie Yaz, you can see and hear me? Okay, because it actually says like, it keeps going in and out on my end. Thanks for saying that you can see and hear me. Please confirm before I get into it that you can see and hear me. I was saying that I'm super excited about tonight because it is an episode of Hustle Talks. So it's going to be gems, yes, but then it's also raw insight. So if you have ever seen any of the Hustle Talks episodes, then this is going to be like that, but the live version, which should be really, really good. But if my YouTube keeps acting up, we might have to reboot this thing. Let's hope we don't have to reboot this thing. Let me see if I can see it on my end. Let me see. Hey, the nail lady. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so I can see it on my end. It just looks like YouTube is not sending the alert, which is tragic and trash, but I'm not going to let that stop me because I want to get this episode out. So, pretty much, if you haven't heard of Hustle Talks, whether you're watching this replay or whether you're watching this live, if you haven't heard of Hustle Talks is my podcast, and I actually started it last summer. And when I started last summer, I used to do all live sessions. So I didn't have any pre-recorded sessions at all. Everything was done live, and I interacted with everybody live, and it was really a vibe, right? It was really, really a vibe. But for productivity, we decided to make it a recorded episode, make all of the episodes recorded, but then we also needed to make it recorded. That way we can distribute it to different platforms, so on and so forth. So I haven't been live for Hustle Talks in a while. So although I go live typically to drop some gems or to do quick Q&As, or sometimes I show behind the scenes of working with me on one of my brands, today we are talking about what goes on behind the scenes, like what's the true nitty-gritty of entrepreneurship. But specifically today, we're talking about the nitty-gritty of brand strategy, because we are talking all about the things that the big brands don't want you to know, okay? So there are certain things that big brands do specifically that attribute to their success, okay? And I want to share what those things are with you, but I also just want to have a real conversation about how these things are actually happening around us every single day, and why we should be catching on if our goal is to establish and run a long-lasting brand, okay? So, you know the term household brand. Like when I say long lasting, think household as well. If you want to become a household name, if you want to become like the Colgate to cosmetics, or the Lysol to hair, or so on and so forth, that is like a household name. And that comes from you being able to build a long lasting brand, which I am going to talk about what these big brands are doing that have allowed them to actually either blow up really fast or sustain their size for a very, very long time. So if you are super excited about that, give this a thumbs up, especially because YouTube is acting up and it's not sending out notifications. So give this a thumbs up so that way YouTube can know that people are actually watching this, and that you like what I am sharing. So give it a thumbs up and also feel free to interact in the comments. So let's get started, shall we? Welcome to episode 8 of Hustle Talks. The way that Hustle Talks is going to work moving forward is we're actually going to do it in seasons. And so season 1 is going to end after episode 10. The other 2 episodes will be pre-recorded, so there won't be a live feature. But if it is something that I feel like I really, really love doing, I may do a live next season, but it'll only be one time. So this is your time to really interact with me. If you've seen Hustle Talks, you know that I share personal things about myself, or I just share like more insight into how I think, why I think certain ways. And it's super, super insightful. If you haven't watched Hustle Talks before, or if you haven't listened to Hustle Talks before, you can find it on Spotify, YouTube Music, and Apple Music. You can watch it specifically on YouTube or on Spotify as well. You can watch the actual video if you want to see my face. But pretty much, Hustle Talks is a way for me to share the good, bad, and ugly of entrepreneurship. And today, I am so excited to talk about this because the way that my brain works is crazy, right? So, I will be walking into different stores and I'll always start thinking about how they were able to do certain things. How were they able to build this brand with this certain type of experience? Or how are they able to build this brand that everybody's willing to pay thousands of dollars for? Or how are they able to build this brand that can sell out in minutes when they drop something new? How are they able to do these things, right? Even when I walk into smaller brands that maybe aren't super like huge, like a Walmart or a Target, but smaller brands that are dominating locally, to me that is still a big brand, because if you're able to have 20 different franchises or 20 different locations, that's still big to me. So when I walk into these spaces, my mind is always running. I'm always thinking, how did they get here? What is the story behind it? And I'm always intrigued to know. I am like a nerd when it comes to that type of stuff. So if I go to a place and they emphasize their story, their founding story, I'm the one that's going to read it from top to bottom. If they have pictures of maybe like their history from when the business was founded all the way until now, I'm the type of person who's going to look through that whole thing. And if you're like that, give it a thumbs up or let me know in the comments that this is you too. But I like love to do this. I find joy in doing this. And until recently, I didn't really pinpoint why it is that I love doing this. And it really is because I'm looking for the brand strategy behind everything. And it aligns with what I do in my day to day. But even if you're not a brand strategist like me, right? Even if you're just maybe you are into cosmetics or into apparel, or maybe you're into finances and all these types of things. Whatever it is that you're interested in, sometimes it's like your brain, it just goes in overdrive whenever you're in that specific industry. And that is how my brain works when it comes to brand strategy. But I see it everywhere. Like I see it everywhere. And up until recently, um I hadn't pinpointed what the thing was that all of these big brands were doing right. I knew that they all were doing very similar things, especially because I had worked in corporate America for quite a bit of time, and I had the opportunity to work with big brands. I had the opportunity to work with BP and the Dallas Cowboys franchise and so on and so forth. And so I had the ability to work with these big brands, and I saw certain patterns, but for some reason, I never actually wrote down like the blueprint, if that made sense, or wrote down my findings from it all until recently. And so when I started to notice this pattern, I noticed that there were 7 specific things that all of these brands had in common. And these 7 specific things, I like to refer to them like your brand building blocks now. I coined it that. But these 7 specific things were reoccurring themes in every big brand that I saw. Have you ever stepped into a store or a franchise, or do you shop with a big brand and you wonder, how the heck did they get so successful? Have you ever wondered that? If you have, put one in the chat. If you have, put one in the chat. I have to remember that this Hustle Talks is supposed to be interactive. But put one in the chat if you have walked into a space or you have shopped online and you've wondered, how the heck did they get so successful? It seems like they may be doing the simplest things, but yet when I try to replicate these things, it doesn't work for me. It seems like the simplest marketing strategies are working for them, but when I try to do it for me and for my business and with my brand, it doesn't work the same way for me. It doesn't hit the same, right? If you ever wondered that, put one in the chat, right? And it's honestly, it's not because the marketing strategy that you're doing is way different. 9 times out of 10, it's because the brand strategy that you've developed is way off. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that. It may not be that the marketing strategy that you are trying to replicate is completely different. It may be that the brand strategy that you developed is completely off, like left field, right? And so I believe that what gives marketing the fuel to be successful is the brand, right? And that is why I teach from a brand centric marketing standpoint. And so today I'm going to share what those 7 brand building blocks are. And these are the secret building blocks that every big brand has. I'm talking about brands like Fenty Beauty, brands like Fashion Nova, Chick-fil-A, Walmart, even like big brands, whether they are newer or whether they've been around for some time, they all have these 7 things. So make sure that you have your notebook, because this is going to be so good and so juicy. And it's going to be short because this is an episode of Hustle Talks and we need to take the audio and put it on podcast. So we can't be over here talking for an hour and a half and 2 hours like I usually do on my live. So once you have your notebook, put ready in the chat. Once you have your notebook, put ready in the chat to let me know that you are ready to learn what these 7 brand building blocks are. Because when I share these with you, these will literally blow your mind. But most importantly, I want for you to look at it from a different perspective now. I want you to say, oh, okay, I'm missing 5 of 7 of these. This makes sense. If I develop all 7 of these, I will be able to be more successful. I want you to look at it from that lens. So when you are taking notes, I want you to actually take notes with the intention to figure out how you can build these blocks, right? Whether you got to do some more research after learning the building blocks and you got to figure out how to plug and play, whether you decide to join Bomb CEO so that you can work with me to build these, whatever it is you decide, just know that after today, you got to be committed to actually building these blocks, unless it's not going to work. So I want you to think about building blocks like the foundation to a home, right? Because if the foundation is not sturdy, everything that's built on top of that isn't going to be sturdy. Write that down. If your foundation isn't sturdy, everything on top of that is not going to be sturdy. It's going to be a hot mess. Thank you. It's going to be a hot mess. Okay? Have you ever tried to, like when you're playing Tetris, have you ever tried to put the cube stick thing on top of bare bones? It'll be like one little stick and you're trying to stack it so high, but because it's on that one little stick, anything that you do, you can blow, you can sneeze, you can blink too hard, and I said Tetris, Jenga, and the Jenga tower will fall. Because what happens is, and I absolutely dislike when people I'm playing with does this, but they'll make the foundation weak. So anything that you do after that point, you're set up to fail. You're set up to fail because anything that you try to stack on top, no matter how high you think you can go with these Jenga blocks, you're going to fall and you're going to crumble eventually because the foundation keeps getting weaker and weaker. Anybody ever played Jenga before? If you played Jenga and you're watching the replay, comment Jenga is my game if you love Jenga. If you're watching this live and you love Jenga, put in the chat box that Jenga is your game, because Jenga is the perfect visualization of what I'm about to teach you, or what I'm about to share, honestly. Okay, let me see. I see readies in the chat, and I see the ones. Thank y'all for participating. Ready, ready, ready. Okay, okay, okay. All right. So let's get into it then. So these are 7 building blocks that I've already discussed with my membership group, Bomb CEO. We've already talked about all these things. We already built all of these things. We actually spent about 3 hours hashing out all of their building blocks a few weeks ago. And we did it on a full live session. So I was able to give feedback. They were able to work on it in real time. And they absolutely got so much clarity. After that, one of our bomb CEOs actually then ended up getting a deal after that with her target audience, so, or her ideal customer, I should say, which was so amazing. So what I'm about to share with you is lucrative. It's profitable. Okay, it's profitable. When I tell you that this is the key, this is the key. These 7 brand building blocks are the key to everything that you are going to do. Okay, so let's get started. The first brand building block. Hey, yes, Bomb CEO in the house. The first brand building block is going to be your target audience. Okay, so building block number 1 is your target audience. And the order in which I'm going to share these blocks matter. So pay attention to them. Remember what I said about Jenga, or remember what I said about building a house. For those who never played Jenga before, look it up. Actually, I can pull it up for you if you've never played it, or if you've never seen it. I'll show you an image of Jenga. But how you lay the foundation matters, right? So the order that I'm telling you these building blocks in, they matter because the first block makes the second block even more sturdy, so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to show you a quick picture of this Jenga just in case you never seen or heard of Jenga before. I'm going to show you a picture so that you can know what Jenga is. You can know what Jenga is. We don't want to pay. Thank you. All right, let me show you real fast. This right here is Jenga. So the bottom really does determine what happens at the top. Okay, the bottom really determines what happens at the top. So pay close attention to the order. Now, like I said, this was basically a 3-hour lesson that I shared with Bomb CEOs. They have the replay so they get to rewatch it over and over again and work on these building blocks, because it is a work in progress. It is something that you are going to have to work on for a period of time for it to really, for you to see the maximum benefits from it. Will you be able to experience wins, once you start applying this? Absolutely. Absolutely. You'll be able to experience wins. Our members in Bomb CEO, we share wins when we come on the call. And every week, somebody, actually multiple people, have wins. Okay. So you'll be able to experience wins with these things. So building block number 1 is target audience. You need to know specifically who your bullseye is. I cannot stress this enough, but I feel like I talk about it so much that I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this. But then I got to remember that this is Hustle Talks, right? So target audience is everything that you do is basically what you're going to build. Like, your target audience is going to be this core of that, okay? So everything that you do needs to be surrounding your target audience. When you know your target audience, you're able to make better business decisions. You're able to really hone in on what exactly you need to do and when. So when you're thinking about brand campaigns, it's easy for you to say, okay, well, my target audience would specifically like this. I just shared a content piece to Instagram, and it was about campaign ideas that you can execute for August to grow your audience, but also to basically win your customers over, right? So to build loyalty, grow your audience, hit your goals that you have for August. And one of the examples that I gave, or one of the campaign ideas that I gave, was having a back to school campaign. And then I gave the creative idea of theming it a nostalgic theme, and using one of those things such as like High School Musical or something from back in the day, author even, and playing up on that to make it a really, really nostalgic theme. But in parentheses, I said this would only make sense for a specific type of person. So you may not really vibe with High School Musical if you weren't born in the 90s, maybe the early 2000s too, right? So if you know that your target audience, your bullseye, are people who were born in the 90s, they're millennials, then having a campaign around High School Musical would hit for you. But if you have an audience of baby boomers, it may not be the best to do High School Musical. You may have to go back and do Grease or something, right? That is the importance of knowing your target audience. When I say things that make sense or put a light bulb in your head, do me a favor and put gem in the chat, please. So as I am talking through this tonight, put gem in the chat if you are getting some clarity from this conversation. Hey, Khadijah. Okay, so put gem in the chat if you're getting clarity from this conversation. So that is an example of why target audience is super important. I know that I'm talking about big brands, so I'm going to give you a big brand example. Fenty Beauty decided to target a very specific corner of the market that was underrepresented and underserved, right? And so when she decided to do that, she was called crazy by some people, and people said that, oh, it might not make money and so on and so forth. But because she specifically knew the problems and the pain points of who it was that her brand was going to be targeting, she was able to build campaigns that made sure that it was inclusive, that highlighted melanated skin. So that way, her audience could feel welcomed, could feel heard, could feel understood. And that is how Rihanna was able to literally, I don't want to say go from zero because she was doing music, but if we're talking about entrepreneurship, she was literally able to go from zero to $1 billion real quick. She went to $1 billion company quicker than some of y'all get raises. Like literally, it was insane. It was insane how fast she was able to hit that $1 billion mark. Do y'all remember when Rihanna hit $1 billion? Let's see what year that was actually. When did Fenty hit 1 billion? Let's Google it. Let's see, 2021. And it was founded in 2017. So it officially launched September 8th, 2017. I'm going to say less than 4 years because technically it's August 6th, 2021. So right at the cusp of 4 years later, less than 4 years later, she became a billionaire. Insane. Yet, you still fighting for that 10-cent raise. It's been 3.5 years and you're still fighting for the 10-cent raise. Isn't that insane? That's insane. And I'm not saying that to like poke at your situation, but it's insane to think about. There's so much success out there that we can have if we just put our minds to actually go get it. But that's a whole different ball game for a whole different session, right? Some of my bomb CEOs are in here, and we always end up talking about mindset somehow, some way. Even when we're talking about deep strategy, there's always a nugget of wisdom in there that just comes. But I want to stick to the course, right? I want to stay on topic with what it is that we're talking about. All right, so that is the first brand building block. So what I want you to ask yourself is how well do you know your target audience? On a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you know your target audience? On a scale of 1 to 10. You can put it in the chat and or you can write it in your notes. And Khadija said 3% raise, losing, not even enough to cover inflation. Exactly. Inflation is crazy. I use an inflation calculator, um, especially when I'm trying to make things make sense as to why we should or shouldn't buy things. I use an inflation calculator, and it's insane. But put 1 to 10, how well do you know your target audience? With 10 being, I can call them up on the phone. I know them so well, and we can have a conversation, and everything that I say will hit for them. Or 1 where I don't really even know who to target. Or maybe you're somewhere in between where you know kind of who you should target, but you need clarity, something like that. So put the number in the chat, but then also write it in your notebook. You want to write it down because at the end, I'm going to have you do something, okay? All right, so 1 to 10. That's the first brand building block. The second brand building block is going to be personality and voice. That's 1. Personality and voice. That's going to be 1 block, okay? But it's the second block. So not 2 separate blocks. It's not 2 and 3. It's 2 is just personality and voice. So ampersand. I like to use ampersand so that way it doesn't seem like 2 separate words. It seems like it goes together. So personality, ampersand, voice. All right? So the reason why we are able to think about certain brands when we see something, or the reason why we're able to think about certain brands when someone says something, is because they have a distinct brand personality. The fact that we can be talking to somebody about maybe going out and turning up in Atlanta this weekend, and we can tell that person, you should probably check Fashion Nova. They probably got some cute outfits for you. Anybody ever did that? It doesn't have to be just about Fashion Nova. It could be about any brand. You're talking to someone and you can reference where they should go to buy something or where they should go to find something. Oh, you definitely should go there, right? We are able to say this because of the brand personality layered on top of who we know the target audience is. Remember what I said about the brand building blocks? They build on top of each other. So now we're able to make recommendations simply off of the fact that we know the brand's personality. We know how the brand would act. We also know who the brand is meant to target. How powerful would it be if somebody can do that for your brand? How powerful would it be if somebody's having a conversation in their day-to-day and they say, hey, I've been struggling to lose inches off my waist and I'm looking for a brand that has, maybe they're health conscious. They're not just about like the curvaceous look. They support the health and they also care about the materials they use and da 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 da. And somebody can say, oh, that's such and such brand. Perfect. Here you go. Here's the link. Or this is the name. Google it. How powerful would it be if people can do that? That's called the power of referrals. And the power of referrals will always outrank any cold marketing that you can do any day, because people trust who they know. So if somebody that they know or have a relationship with can recommend them to a brand, it cuts the work that you have to do for your marketing in half. Okay? So a brand personality example here, I mean, all of them have great brand personalities, but one in particular can be how Fashion Nova tends to be really bold, on trend, and a little risque. And they live up to their personality because if you're on their text list, you know that they text you the wildest things. They will text you the wildest things, okay? The text message that stands out the most to me, I remember it vividly, is when Will slapped Chris, and they were so quick. That text message came like within the next 5 minutes. And it literally was like, we slapping this discount to rock your world or something like that. It was the wildest thing. And then they had the GIF already made. That matches their personality. They're bold. they're going to say something like that. They're also risque. They're going to risk it all and be able to say some wild things. And they're risque, so they're going to be able to talk a little bit more sexy, a little bit more raunchy. Whereas if you're more of a conservative brand personality, you wouldn't really do what Fashion Nova is doing. Does that make sense? Drop gems if that gave you some clarity. Does that make sense? Drop gems if that gave you some clarity. Or the gem icon. And also make sure that you're thumbsing up this live, please. Because right now, I don't know if y'all appreciate the fact that I'm doing Hustle Talks live. This is a conversation I could have had pre-recorded. I wanted to do this live because I wanted to do this fun activity and, be able to engage and give more clarity if needed. Thank you, Barbara. I see Barbara said 5, Lakeisha says 7, Yazzie 7, Khadijah 7. Okay. Cool beans, cool beans. So now I'm going to ask you a similar question. When it comes to your brand personality and voice, how developed is it? Okay, on a 1 to 10. 10 being Chanel, I've mapped out my brand personality and voice. I have vivid examples of my tone. I know exactly certain catchphrases that my brand would say in certain situations. I have a tagline for my brand. I got all that in the box. My brand personality is so put together that, I can literally ship it to you right now with a bow on top. Or the opposite of that is, I didn't even think about mapping out my brand personality. If that's you, you're a 1. If you didn't even think about mapping out your brand personality, you're a 1. If you got it all set, ready to go, you got your taglines, you know how you respond to certain things, you know your tone, you know all of that, you're a 10. And if you're anywhere in between, pick a different number. Okay? So do that for personality and voice and write it in your notebook as well as share it in the chat. Thank you, Yazzie Yaz, for saying 5. And I also saw the gems. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. So then the next brand building block is going to be brand building block number 3. This is going to be story, your brand story. Okay. We halfway through already. Can you believe it? I'm moving fast today. So brand building block 3 of 7 is your brand's story. A little hack is storytelling wins. Okay. Psychologically, storytelling wins. There's a reason why your friend can call you on the phone and they can tell you the longest story of life that's 30 minutes. But because of the way that your friend tells stories, you are engaged the whole time. Like, what? I know you lying. Like, you're engaged with the story. It doesn't matter how long it is because storytelling wins. That same concept doesn't stop when it comes to business, when it comes to entrepreneurship. That same concept applies. And that is why it's so crucial to have your brand story. Because if you were to be in front of somebody face to face and you were trying to tell them about your brand or maybe even convince them to join your list or shop with you, you should lead with your story. You have what I call a brand's kind of like a power pitch, but ultimately, after that minute is over with or less, because some pitches can be maybe 50, 45 seconds, after that pitch is over with, you need to swing it and pull out the story that makes your brand relatable to the person in front of you. And from there, you then have conversation that you guys bounce back and forth off of. They share things about them, which is your audience. They're going to share things about them. You share things about you as the brand. And if you are interested in developing what I call a CEO brand, as the CEO brand as well. Okay? And so you need to know what your brand story is, period. Brand story is possibly one of my most favorite parts of the brand building block. And I know, like, I feel like I say a lot of things are my favorite, especially when it comes to branding, but I guess they all are my favorite, right? But literally, because when I go into a store or when I go into a restaurant or whatever, I'm drawn to the story. That is the most impactful thing to me. It pulls on my emotions. It helps me to put myself in their shoes. It helps me to picture the moment with the founders. It also helps me to see the passion within that particular CEO or set of co-founders, or behind their mission, so on and so forth. I'm able to see all of these things simply because of the story. And so there are many different stories that you want to develop for your brand, okay? There are about 3 in particular that I feel like are your starting lineup that you want to create. Okay? One is your founding story, one is your product story, one is your CEO story. Make sure you got all those 3 ironed out. And personally, when I shared my brand's journey and the challenges that I overcame, that resonated deeply with y'all, right? My story time about entrepreneurship going full time is a very well performed video, right? It performed really, really well. And people love that. There's a vlog where I shared, the fact that, I was feeling a little bit down about entrepreneurship and what my plans were to pick up the pieces. And that resonated a lot with y'all too. And that's one of my highest viewed vlogs. So to me, I know that when I share certain stories, it's going to connect. But outside of that, every story doesn't have to be super sad. Every story doesn't have to be super courageous. Will the top 3 or the blueprint 3 that I just shared be that? Yes. Your product story, your CEO story, and your founder story almost always will be this blueprinted type of emotionally jerking story that you will share. But outside of that, there are many stories, many stories actually, that you can share in your day to day about your brand and about certain things and certain aspects, right? And so, a big brand example that I want to share for this brand building block is Chick-fil-A. How many of y'all know about Chick-fil-A? Put a 1 if you like Chick-fil-A. Put a 2 if you're a Chick-fil-A hater. But 1 if you like Chick-fil-A, 2 if you're a Chick-fil-A hater. And it's okay, because in college I used to be a Chick-fil-A hater. And that's a whole nother topic for another day. If you're in Bomb CEO and you want to know, just ask me in the chat or ask me when we go live this week, and I'll tell y'all why. But Chick-fil-A has won me over since. And one of the things that won me over is the story. I had the ability to be in a room with the current CEO of Chick-fil-A and to hear how he talks about the story of how his how the generations before him really like built this whole brand was insane. To hear how emotionally triggering it still was insane. And even outside of listening to Dan talk about Chick-fil-A, when you research Chick-fil-A, or even if you pay attention to the type of campaigns that they do and little subtle notes to their story that they mention, it really is a really good story. It's a great founding story. And it's what all of their principles stand upon. The reason why they're super religious is because of how they were founded. The reason why they honor customer service so much is because of how they were founded. The reason why they train the way they do is because how they were founded. And even though they continue to grow year after year, they find ways to modernize certain things without losing the core. It's crazy. So, similar activity. If you have your brand story and you have the 3 that I just mentioned, founder, CEO, product story, already mapped out, put a 10. If you have none of these mapped out and you never even thought about having a brand story before, put 0. If you thought about a story before and you created maybe one of these stories, maybe you're like, okay, well, I know my entrepreneurship story. I could write that right now if I needed to. Then put a 5. Honestly, put a 5. And if you started writing any of the 3, then you can put a 6 or a 7. Okay? So if you didn't even think about brand story before today, you're a 1. If you thought a little bit about it, but you made no moves towards it, you're somewhere between 1 and 5. If you thought about it, but you didn't really implement anything, but you know what your story is, put a 5. And if you have thought about all the stories and you've mapped them out, you're a 10. Wait, not Barbara put a 0. That's funny. That's funny. I love that. I see another 0 too. The nail lady said, I'm gonna put 3 because I don't love nor hate Chick-fil-A. I'm indifferent, only ate there once. Yeah, no, I feel you. If you knew, I literally I was against Chick-fil-A so much in college. I didn't care how many people tried to convince me to eat there. I was so against it. I just did not want to eat it. I was like, it's not that good anyway. Quite frankly, the Chick-fil-A near my house has like tanked a little bit with the seasoning. Like they went down with the seasoning. I don't know what's up with that. But when I can have fried chicken again, I'm hoping that they actually go back to seasoning it like it used to, because it used to be so seasoned, especially when you get the spicy. But I'm gonna start salivating over here because I'm super hungry. So let me just move on. Let me just move on. uh Nialis, hopefully I said it right. I feel like I don't have a story. I just love beautification and want to sell wigs. No, baby, you need a story. You need a story. You need a story for sure. Okay, you need all of these. You need all 7 of these. Okay, which brings me to brand building block number 4, and that is PMVs. PMVs, brand building block number 4. PMVs. It stands for purpose, mission, values, vision. Okay, y'all got it? Purpose, mission, values, vision. If you're watching the replay of this, or if you're watching, or if you're listening to this as a podcast episode, you're probably like, who am I talking to right now? Well, this podcast episode was recorded live on YouTube. If you want to participate in the YouTube live replay version, you can visit my YouTube channel, which is The Brand Hustler, and you can watch the live replay. But if you continue listening here on the cleaned up audio version, you will hear me interacting with what seems to be an invisible crowd, but I promise that the crowd was very much visible. Okay, so I had to say that real quick, y'all, because if you don't know, this is an episode of Hustle Talks. It's not just me going live. It's an episode of Hustle Talks that I wanted to do live because before we wrapped up season 1, which is going to be wrapping up in 2 weeks, I wanted to do a live version of Hustle Talks because Hustle Talks was founded with a live series. So I always want to keep that and do one live every season, as long as we can sustain that. So I'm super excited. And the purpose between the seasons of Hustle Talks is so that we can come back bigger and better. I'm always looking for ways to outdo myself and to improve. So I'm super excited about that. We have a lot of improvements on the way, and we broke them into milestone improvements. So between now and season 2, you'll see some improvements, and then stick around for season 3. You'll see some more improvements, and it's going to be litty. Okay, it's going to be litty. Hey, fly girl. Hey. All right, so brand building block number 4: purpose, mission, values, and vision. I call these PMVs because it's easier to remember. And no, I'm not going to say PMVVs because, quite frankly, I don't pay as much attention to vision as I should, because I feel as though once you set a vision, you can kind of set it and not forget it, but look at it, if that makes sense. Whereas your purpose, your mission, and values are things that are enrooted in every single thing that you do on a day to day. Does your vision matter? Absolutely. But it's something that you mention, you remember, you look at. It's literally your vision. Okay. And you're working towards that vision. But what's allowing you to work towards that vision is the fact that you are activating your purpose every day, working on your mission every day, and showcasing your values every day. Okay, so I hope y'all taking good notes. Okay, I'm dropping a lot of gems here. Don't forget, as you get clarity, as you learn something new, drop gems in the chat or in the comments. Also, give this a like. If you haven't liked it yet, please give it a like to let YouTube know that they should suggest this to some more people, because YouTube was tripping at the beginning and they weren't sending people alerts. So please like this, comment, run the comments up so that way people can see this live replay of this episode of Hustle Talks. Okay. So when you have a clear mission, It will guide you through tough decisions. Okay. There were many decisions that I wanted to make in my entrepreneurship journey. And I always had to go back to my PMVs and ask myself, does this align? Does this align with what my purpose is? Does this align with the mission that I intended to accomplish? Does this align with the values that I have for my company and for myself as CEO? Does this align? Would doing this basically break trust with my consumer because it goes completely left from what my values actually are? Would this align or would it go completely left? You're only able to do that if you have taken the time to develop your purpose statement, taken the time to develop your mission statement, taken the time to develop your list of values. And I'm going to put you up on game. Your values are literally the guiding principles of everything you do. How you respond to emails is a result of your values. How you handle refunds is a result of your values. How you train that new VA that you just hired, or how you train your very first full-time or part-time team member is based on values. I just gave you the example of Chick-fil-A and how they take customer service super serious, right? I have never seen another fast food restaurant stand out in the rain with raincoats on before Chick-fil-A did it. That is an insane amount of great customer service. But that is because their values are rooted in such strong customer centric principles. And so they make sure that through thick and thin, we're going to show up for you, except on Sundays. But through thick and thin, we are going to show up for you. Do you get it? Do you get it now? Do you get it? Get it in the chat if you get it. Do you get it? Do you get why it's important to have your purpose, your mission, and your values outlined, as well as your vision decided upon and serving as a kind of like a guiding light, your North Star? Get it in the chat if you get it. I want to make sure that we're getting it before I move on to 5 of 7 building blocks. I want to make sure we get it. I see Yazzie Yaz said, get it. Thank you. I'm loving your energy, Yazzie Yaz. Thank you so much for the engagement on here. I'm going to assume that everybody's taking notes and stuff, so they're coming to the keyboards late. But the more you engage with me, the more that I want to share. Just FYI. So when you come on live sessions, engage. It helps me really feel as though I'm talking to you and you're in front of me. Because if not, it just makes it seem like I'm talking to nobody, and I can do that in the shower. So, all right. So similar activity, this time with purpose, mission, and values, or like I call them your PMVs. On a scale of 1 to 10, how fine-tuned are these? And we're going to break it down. If you don't have any of these, you're a 1. If you don't have any of these, or you never even thought about doing them, you're a 1. If you thought about doing them, but you just never did them, you're a 3. If you've done one of these, you're going to be a 5. If you've done 2 of these, and by doing them, not just thinking about them, but actually writing out the statements, if you've done one of these, you're going to be a 5. If you've created 2 of these, you're going to be a 7. If you've created 3 of these, you're going to be a 9. And if you created all 4, purpose, mission, values, and vision, you're going to be a 10. Okay? So 1, if you're like, girl, I didn't even think about this before, but you're right, Chanel. I need to get on my Zoom and I need to get it together, 3, if you know about them though, but you just never did anything, you're a 3. 5, if you've created 1 statement. 7, if you created 2 statements. 9, if you've created 3. 10, if you've created all 4. So 1 through 10. Write it down in your notebook, or share it in the chat, or both. I want y'all to do both, but not the shower. No facts. I have full meetings in the shower. Okay. Cheat code. Have meetings while you drive, especially long distances, and have meetings in the shower. And when you're having meetings when you drive, voice record yourself, especially if you are coming up with all these juicy ideas. You're probably not going to remember once you get to your destination. And you're definitely not going to remember when you get back home. So just pull out your phone, record it, and title it accordingly. And trust me, that's going to save you so much headache. Okay. It's going to save you so much headache. So much headache. And so for all of your numbers, whichever one you're missing, whether you're missing 1, 2, 3, or all 4, write a little side note. I got to create these. I got to create these. Okay. All right. Y'all ready to move on to brand building block number 5? Y'all ready to move on to brand building block number 5? Let me get yes in the chat, capital yes in the chat if you're ready to move forward to brand building block number 5. The nail lady said, I love a more detailed vid on PMVs. I talk about them a lot, in a lot of my videos actually. But a specific one where I talk about them and I lay them out brick by brick, more than likely it's going to be this video right here. I'll drop the link to it as well. Let me see. I think I talk about it in here. Oh no, this is y'all can't see my screen. I just realized I do this all the time. In Bomb CEO, literally, sometimes I'm like, I'm talking, and I'm like, wait, y'all can't see my screen. I'm like, y'all can't see my screen. Whoops. I'm gonna find it for you. It's not that one, but I'm gonna find it for you. I talk about it quite a bit, but honestly, I mean, if you join Bomb CEO, we talked about it a couple of times already, and specifically when we did the full 3-hour session on mapping out their brand building blocks, we talked about purpose, mission, values, and vision. But there's a video on my channel called 3 Brand Essentials. I'm going to link it for you. I talk about it in there a little. But let me paste that for you. All right, so I see yeses. Perfect. All right, let's get into number 5 because I'm hungry and I got oxtail to cook. And I also have to make a Caesar salad, which I make my Caesar dressing from scratch, okay? Period. I'm really a chef. For real, I'm not just saying that, but yeah, make my Caesar dressing from scratch. I make my croutons from scratch, all that. And I got to make oxtail, rice and peas, cabbage, plantains, the whole 9. So I have the long night ahead of me. The oxtails are going to slow cook though, but still, I'm hungry. And so I need to make a salad, a salmon salad or something, or a Caesar salad with a side of trout so I can eat because I'm starving. I feel like every time I go live, I haven't eaten for the day. And that's annoying to me. I'm always hungry when I'm on here. TMI, but not really. But I'm already salivating at the fact that I'm going to have oxtails in a few hours, but you know, still. All right. So, brand building block number 5. Okay. No, I'm not Jamaican. I'm Antiguan mostly. So, branding block number 5 is going to be your messaging. Okay. Remember, we're layering this like Jenga. So do it in this order that I'm sharing with you, okay? In the exact order that I'm sharing with you, do it in this order. If you're missing something, follow the order, okay? Yeah, no problem, nail lady. There's actually a whole playlist too. I figure people find me every day. Shout out to God. But there's new hustle babes that come into this YouTube space every single day. But there's a playlist called Branding Must Haves. I'm gonna share that full playlist with you, and you can binge that whole thing. It's really juicy, really good, and a lot of help have come, or a lot of transformation has come from the help on this playlist. So Nail Lady, this link right here is for you and for anybody else who wants to watch and binge all of the brand related videos. We talk rebranding, how to build a strong brand online, on social media, attract your audience, that whole thing. There's a lot of videos on there you can like binge and watch if you'd like. Okay, so boom, messaging, right? Brand building block number 5 is messaging. You do not want to sound like somebody on one platform, and on the next platform, your brand sounds like a completely different brand. That is not okay. That is confusing. That is confusing. Humidity is killing my hair, by the way. That is confusing, okay? You want everybody to be able to pinpoint your messaging, like when they see it. Even if they just came across the words somewhere, they're like, that makes sense, right? There's a reason why Chick-fil-A has certain messaging, not only for their like just core brand overall, but they have messaging for their marketing too. So if you realize you're driving down the highway and you see these billboards with the cows, and the cows they say the wildest things, and it's also in like chicken scratch for cows. It's the coolest thing ever. But that is a part of their messaging. Eat more chicken. Don't eat beef, because Chick-fil-A, majority of their locations have all chicken right? And so it makes sense for their messaging to be telling you, eat more chicken. On all platforms, it doesn't matter. They're going to talk to you about eating more chicken. They're going to talk to you about anti-beef, because they want you to eat Chick-fil-A. But outside of something that's so obvious, you want to think about messaging as the vehicle to your tone, the vehicle to certain words that you say, right? So there are certain words that one brand would say that another may not say. Shopping with a pleasure is a Publix thing, right? That tagline makes sense for them. My pleasure is a Chick-fil-A thing. That's messaging. If you go to McDonald's and you hear my pleasure, you probably bend your neck back. But if you hear my pleasure from Chick-fil-A, you grabbing your fries and you're like, all right, thanks. Because it's usual to you. That's a part of their messaging. And then guess what? Remember, it lays on top of each other. If we look at our previous block, now they've trained their team, because of their values, to now be able to carry out certain messaging. You struggle with that? Yes, I hope this provides you with some clarity. But if you need in depth how to develop this, then definitely come into Bomb CEO. I'm going to share something later that is, if you've heard about Bomb CEO, great. But if you haven't, I'll share some more later. But I'm also going to share something super exclusive with everybody that's on this live. So definitely sit through to the end. See, I'm too hungry. Now my words are jibber jabbering. It's so cute. Back to business. Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I didn't think I had an accent, but a lot of people say that. I think it's a mixture of Caribbean accent, and then I grew up in Miami most of my life too after moving here. So it's a mosh pit. And now I live in Atlanta, so but anyway, you want consistent and clear messaging. You don't want your audience to be confused at all. So when you craft a consistent brand message, you help your brand communicate more effectively, and it leads to better understanding and increased trust. You probably had that person who you're not friends with anymore, or never even made it to the friendship altar, because this person was one way in front of your face and another way behind your back. Or this person was one way today and another way tomorrow. Wishy-washy is what we call it. Anybody ever experienced somebody like that? Anybody ever experienced somebody that was wishy-washy? They act like this today, or they say this today, and then they act a completely different way tomorrow, or say something different tomorrow. If you've experienced that, put me in the chat, because I can't be the only one. If you've experienced that, put me in the chat. You experienced a wishy-washy person who you're like, what the heck? Yep. Yes. Exactly. Even if it didn't happen directly to you, you witnessed it for somebody else. I've also had that too. I've witnessed it, and I'm like, didn't you just say you don't like her? Interesting. Right? That happens to me, and I see it a lot. Hey, Lux by Serenity, right? And that is the same feeling, the same thoughts that your consumer is going to think. They're going to say, but you was just okay, maybe that wasn't you, but it is you. Wait a minute. And they're just going to be confused. They're not going to trust you, and they're not going to shop with you. And if your consumer doesn't trust you, they don't buy, period. And if they do buy, they end up causing a lot of trouble either really soon or somewhere down the line. If you've ever had a very angry customer and you were wondering, why the heck is she even so angry? Or why is he so angry? Like, we're doing things right according to our SOPs and stuff. Um, and for some reason, this person is just not satisfied. This person is not satisfied. And then when you actually look deeper, that's the person that you drug tooth and nail to convince to buy from you. And okay, when you go deeper, you're like, okay, why did I have to drag them tooth and nail to convince them to buy from me? Oh, because they didn't trust me. And why didn't they trust me? Oh, because they said they found me on TikTok and then they found my page on Instagram and it wasn't the same and they thought I was scamming. And so they DM'd me, and then I had to heavily discount what it was I was offering them to convince them to buy. And I had to pull, the teeth out to pretty much convince them to buy from me. Your messaging is like a trickle effect. So, a big brand example of this, I mentioned it earlier. Fenty Beauty has all inclusive messaging, and they're very on top of making sure how they say things comes off a certain way. Okay, so you need to make sure that you create what's called a messaging blueprint document. And this builds on top of all the other blocks that I shared. But you come up with this messaging blueprint document, and it needs to look something like this, right? Because you're basically building your brand's language and also developing your messaging. You need to have a list of words and phrases that your brand will never say. You need to have a list of words and phrases that your brand will absolutely say all of the time. You need to then outline specific scenarios, good and bad, common scenarios. And this is something that you can like Google or just based on your experience. Or if you join Bomb CEO, I'll tell you specifically which experiences or which scenarios to develop these answers for. This is something that you want to do because you want to outline scenarios, good and bad, that are common, and how your brand will respond to it from a messaging standpoint. Not necessarily, oh, I would want my brand to refund them, or oh, I would want my brand to send them something new or comp the amount of hours or whatever. Not that. More so, how would you respond to them verbally if you were talking to them on the phone? And then after you've outlined the messages or the messaging in terms of phrases and words that you're not going to say and phrases and words that you absolutely know your brand is going to say in those scenarios, now start to formulate some captions for your social media posts. Now start to formulate some emails for some copy for your emails that you're sending. Now start to formulate some ad copy using the rules that you just set, and then that's you practicing your brand messaging. Okay? So, on a scale of 1 to 10, if you have a full messaging document, like I just outlined, I gave you the starter blueprint to create your messaging document. If you have that, that's a 10. If you never thought about your messaging or you know that it's jacked up, you're on the bottom half. So, if you never thought of messaging, you're a 1. If you know of messaging, but you know that your messaging is trash and it's wishy-washy, you need to be putting a 2 or a 3. If you've worked on your messaging a little bit, but it's still not hitting, you're somewhere between 5 and a 6. The nail lady said, you're sure smart of why the customer wouldn't trust you. That's wise. I come off wishy washy because I choose not to be as pissed off and decide to forgive and move on with fam. F letting hate stay in my soul. Not with my customers though, just fam. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, 1 to 10. What are you for messaging? 1 to 10. And make sure you're writing it down in your book as well. 1 to 10. Oh, Georgette said, I feel like I post things spontaneously and it might have a different tone. Oh, yeah, we don't want to do that. Everything starts in a planning phase with me. And if you even knew how deep content went, even like, so there may be periods of time where maybe I don't post, like maybe it's like a week or something. And you think that, oh, she's just about to show up and then post something randomly. In that period of time, I am doing deep work to make sure that it makes sense. But not only that, my content strategy is rooted in PMVs. My content strategy is rooted in my audience. My content strategy is rooted in my brand personality, all the things. So I may have a post, and I showed one of my clients this before. I may have a post where on the outside it looks like, oh, only 80 people liked it, but then it'll have like 200 saves. Why? Because my audience, I know them and I know their pain points, and then the messaging that I developed attracted them because of their desires. Don't miss that. Don't miss that. And people who save your posts are going to use and apply whatever it is that you were talking about in the post, whether that's a tip, a product, a physical digital product, whatever. They're going to use it. They're saving it to come back. And savers typically are the people who are clicking through anyway, too. Once they save, a good portion of them are going to click through to whatever your offer is. That's if you have it set up with a call to action and stuff like that, of course. Okay. Thank you for the gems, the nail lady. Thank you. All right. Let me see what numbers y'all put before I share the last one. I see fives. I see fives. Okay. 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 Oh, that makes sense. This is gold. Thank you, Shanice. Da, da, da. How long should the planning phase be? What areas should it include? Example, brand photos, etc. Branding planning phase for what specifically? Like an entire brand, or are you referencing the content example I just gave? Um, okay, before I share what the last brand building block is, so far, is this helpful? Do you feel like, you got clarity? Do you feel like us talking about the big brands and how they do this, was that helpful? If it's been helpful, comment gems in the chat, the actual word. Comment gems in the chat. Okay, thanks. How long does it take to create polls? It depends. But everything should be mapped out prior. I actually showed my bomb CEOs my full content planning document. I'm not showing that on the internet, on YouTube, simply because one, um, I don't want everybody to see it, but then two, my bomb CEOs pay to get a certain level of access to me. So in honor of that, I'm not gonna show it. But uh if you do join Bomb CEO Georgette, you'll be able to see me show it in the replay. I think it was actually last week or the week before I showed the whole thing and I explained everything like to them. It's a massive, it's like maybe 18 pages worth of a document. And they even asked me to template it and give it to them. So I'm working on that, on templating it for them. So if you join, not only will you be able to see mine, you can either look at the replay or ask me to share it again in an upcoming session. You can just, as you see fit. But you'll also have the template soon because I'm working on templating it. But yeah, I hope that answers your question, Georgette. Shanice said business product launch. How long should you be in the planning phase? I mean, not really long. It all depends on what all you've done so far. I don't believe in staying in the planning phase for years, especially if it's not going to be this $100,000 like an expensive product launch. So if it's something that you just been putting off simply because you just keep planning and not executing, then definitely get that thing launched ASAP. Obviously, you want to be strategic and intentional. So I highly believe in having what's called a pre-launch phase. I split my launch into pre-launch, live and launch, and post-launch, where pre-launch is 30 to 60 days before your launch date. So planning phase can be a few months. Up to me personally, max would be a year. I'm not tapping into planning for something super, super duper long if it doesn't have to be. So obviously if I'm creating custom products and it's going to take more money, maybe it's going to be like $35,000, $40,000. Now that's going to contribute to me having a longer planning phase. So I may not be able to just plan a whole product and a brand and a launch in 3-4 months. I may need 6-7 months because I also got to get samples and get that whole thing done. So yeah, that's what I would say. And let's get into this last brand building block, and then I'll answer some quick questions after I share something super exclusive with you. So let me get into this because I gotta go. All right, so the last building block is going to be your visuals. Ta-da! Your visuals. A lot of people make the mistake of doing their visuals first, or it being one of the only things that they do. If you're guilty of this, if you're guilty of only mapping out your visuals and thinking that your branding was done, put guilty. If you're guilty of only vaguely mapping out your target audience and then developing your visuals, put guilty. If you are a person who only thought about two of these building blocks or three of these building blocks and one of them was visuals, put guilty. Okay? Because as you see, visuals came at the very last position. Okay? Visuals are the very top of that Jenga block. Visuals are the roof on your house. Okay? That is what visuals are. If you have pretty visuals on a raggedy foundation, and I mean raggedy, if you have pretty visuals on a raggedy foundation, nothing is going to work. It will continue to frustrate you because every single strategy that you attempt to run will fail. And I can say that confidently because I've seen it time and time again. Okay? So you want your Jenga to look like this when you put visuals on top. You want it to be perfect. See? But what happens if you're guilty of only thinking about visuals or only thinking about visuals and vaguely target audience, your Jenga ends up looking all raggedy like this one. You put that top brick on and you think, oh, I'm done. This is a wrap. You got to dust your hands off. The whole tower falls. The whole thing falls. Because it wasn't stable to begin with because you didn't do any of the 6 brand building blocks that preceded the visuals. I hope you took a note on that because that right there is a word, okay? So when you're thinking about visuals, you want to make sure that just like your messaging, those are cohesive. You also want to make sure that they're appealing, but Not appealing to you only, appealing to who? Your audience. Appealing to your audience. Yes, it shouldn't be ugly to you and cute to your audience. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. It should be something that you are, you like. Obviously, it's your brand, but ultimately it should be something that appeals to your audience. So for me, if I were creating a luxury high-end brand, I'm not a person who really cares for super sleek lines and black and white things, or maybe black and white and gray, or maybe a splash of like a muted color. I'm not a person who cares for those type of things, but I understand that if I created a high-end brand, baby, I got to make things that are going to appeal to my audience. Amber Palmer said, I just joined. Definitely going to catch the replay with my notebook. Yes, definitely catch the replay with your notebook. Okay? So make it make sense. All right? So it needs to be cohesive and appealing brand visuals. All right? So the more fun looking your visuals are, it tends to be either the more childish or the more quote unquote cheap, right? In the design world. The more sophisticated and clean cut and kind of like put together your visuals are, the more high end they are. That's just a little tidbit. So, what I want you to think about is your favorite brand. Oh, I skipped one, y'all. I didn't do 7. I think I did 6. Did I do 7 or 6? Somebody was taking notes. Let me know. Think about your favorite brand visuals, and I want you to think about opposite sides of the spectrum. Think about maybe one of your favorite affordable slash cheaper brands, and think about one of your favorite high-end luxury brands, and then compare the visual difference. Okay? That's visuals. And I actually did skip one. So number 7 is visuals, but I skipped brand block 6. Could somebody confirm that for me? Did I skip brand block 6? If I skip, let me know. Put skipped in the chat. Did I skip it? How many brand blocks do you have? That is my bad if I skipped it. Somebody let me know. Somebody let me know. Are there exceptions to the rule? Yeah, I mean, nothing is concrete. It's all about if you work with a really good designer, they can make almost anything shake, but there are certain design rules that you abide by for a certain look. And it's if you want something that's cheap per se, but you wanted to brand it like a luxury brand, nobody's stopping you. Absolutely. Okay, so am I missing 6? When you count, how many brand blocks do you have? Messaging was 6, visuals was 7. So you have 7 in total. Let me count. I did target audience 1, personality and voice 2, story 3, PMVs 4, messaging was 5. I messed up on that. Messaging was 5, and visuals are 7. So I actually did skip 6. Okay, so let's go back to 6 real quick. 6 is going to be your experience. So you want to create a memorable experience. Okay? Thank you, the nail lady. So make visual 7 and then make experience 6. Just change the number. So you want to deliver a memorable customer experience. How can you do this? By mapping out your customer journey, period. There's no other way to really do this. There's no way to say that you want to improve your customer service. There's no way to say that you want to boost customer loyalty. There's no way to say that you want people to feel more welcomed when they interact with your brand initially. There's no way to do any of that if you don't outline your customer journey. You need to know, where does your audience enter? How do they feel when they enter this journey with you? How do they feel throughout? How they feel towards the end once they make a purchase? How do they feel once you nurture them to become loyal? You also need to know, based on their feelings and based on their stages, how do you need to alter what it is that you're telling them or sharing with them? Yes, said, oh, we needed 6. Yeah. Okay. And so your experience is based off of the journey that you're mapping out to them. Okay. So when you focus on customer experience, not only just, oh, I want to increase customer satisfaction, or, oh, I want to um, reduce my amount of returns. When you focus on the full customer journey, you're able to see the full experience. There may be holes that are happening at the beginning that's causing them to be frustrated once they get towards the end. There may be a hole that's stopping them from actually becoming a repeat customer with you because you have holes at the end. Okay? So, what you want to do is you want to think about the ways that you can create a memorable experience as your customers are going throughout that customer journey. How can I be memorable from day one when they join maybe my email list or my text list or my community, like my free community? How can I then nurture them so that way they purchase from me? How can I then continue to show them that I care and appreciate them? That way they come and they get something even more expensive, or they come and they just shop again. And then next thing you know, they're referring me and they're becoming cheerleaders for my brand. How can I do this? What does that journey look like? And we're actually talking about customer journey and mapping out customer journey in Bomb CEO this month. We're going to do it, I believe it's next week. This week, we are focused on um, operations and automations and things like that. But then next week, we're going to build out our customer journey together. And that is going to literally blow their minds, because we already have people experiencing wins right now in the group. But I know that once we map out the customer journey and we fix certain holes, it's going to blow their minds. I had a consultation last week, Friday, and this young lady was telling me that, she's been on the cusp of six figures for a while, and she doesn't know what is stopping her from actually crossing the six-figure mark. And from our brief conversation and looking at a couple of things on the back end, I was able to see that, hey, there's a lot of holes in your customer journey, and you didn't even map it out yet. But me mapping it out in my head based on what you're telling me, there's some holes that we need to fix. If we just fix two of these five holes, you'll cross six figures. If we fix three of the five holes, you'll probably cross 150,000. And if you fix all of these holes, you're in the multi six figures, because you're going to cross that $200,000 mark. It literally can be a make or break factor for you. Okay? So the nail lady, 1 is target audience, 2 is personality and voice, 3 is brand story, 4 is PMBs, 5 is messaging, 6 is going to be experience now, and then 7 is going to be visuals. All right? Y'all got it? So just to repeat, well, I just did. All right? So now you know the 7 brand building blocks. How you actually create them is a whole different ball game. Each of these can be a different strategy session to go in depth on all of these, right? Luckily, when you work with me, I give you the cheat codes so that way we can cut out a lot of the legwork and get to your results faster. So because of that, I was able to sit down with my members of Bomb CEO and knock out a lot of these brand building blocks within a 3-hour time span. And once they were able to knock that out, they were able to get so much clarity that they were able to then see results in their brand and business almost immediately. Okay? So, what I highly recommend is everything that I just shared with you here today, you take the time to map them out, because literally this is the difference between these big brands that are thriving and the difference between where you're at, where you're trying to get off the struggle bus. You keep wondering why these ads aren't working for you. Well, it's because you haven't mapped out any of these or all of these 7 brand building blocks. You keep wondering why you're creating content that, one, isn't connecting with your audience, isn't getting viewed by anybody, isn't converting your audience, right? Because I strongly believe that every single piece of content is not going to get 100,000 views. It's not. It's not meant to be that way. And believe it or not, your selling content will typically be the lowest in terms of reach, mostly, but it'll be the highest in terms of getting you paid. The most viral content that you have should be the content that is generating leads for you. Whereas the most like in-depth type of content where maybe only a fraction of those people interact with, they should still convert your audience. I one time made $2,000 off of a post that only got 80 likes. And I'm not kidding. Why? Because all these brand building blocks were outlined. I then can flip the coin and say that I've had YouTube videos hit 500,000 views because I know who my target audience is and I know what the grand scheme of my audience wants to see and interact with. I can also say that I had, what is it, 80, 90,000 90,000 plays on a reel because, oh, I know what the grand scheme of things are that my target audience wants to see. I know that, and I also know what will convert them, right? And so you want to work on these things. If this was helpful, give this a thumbs up, give this live video a thumbs up. Please, please, please show YouTube that this is something that you love and would love to see more of. Show me that this is something in content that you would love to see more of. Because, like I shared earlier, this is technically a Hustle Talks episode that I wanted to do live. And we're doing Hustle Talks in seasons, and seasons are going to be 10 episodes. So the next time I have a Hustle Talks lives will not be for quite a few months because we're wrapping up season 1 of Hustle Talks in 2 weeks. And then we're going to start season 2 in the fall, in October sometime. So the next round of this live session probably won't happen until like the end of the year. So if you enjoy this and you want to see more of this, make sure that you're thumbsing up and not just sitting, being a sitting duck and not liking, not commenting, not doing any of the things. Also, if you stuck here till the end, I promised that I would have something special for you. And that special thing is I am giving everyone on this live the ability to join Bomb CEO for an exclusive special investment rate. Okay. So if you are on this live, Bomb CEO is normally $97. I am going to give you a code that you can use to join Bomb CEO for $67. The only thing though is this code does expire this week. If you wait to use this code after it expires at the end of this week, the price is going up to $77. If you wait some more, it's going up to $87. And if you wait and you just miss out, it will be the full price of $97 by the time you are looking to join. So if you've been wanting to join Bomb CEO and maybe you're like, oh, I want to test it out. I want to see what it looks like. And I don't want to, $97 was a little too much. Well, guess what? Now you can test it for $67 because I'm giving you the code of YouTube. This is only until the end of the week for this $67 offer, okay? And this is only for you for sticking through on YouTube. This is not shared anywhere else. This is only shared here on YouTube because you stuck it through with me. I'm going to show you how to enter the code so that you know how to use it. Once you click this link that I put in the chat or go to bombceo.com, you're going to see a button here. You can scroll through this entire website if you'd like to read more about Bomb CEO. Obviously, I would love for you to do that. Hear some of the testimonials, see some of the testimonials, see what's included, see the results, so on and so forth. And if you're not convinced yet, that will help convince you. But if you are like, girl, just give me the link, give me the code, I'm ready, click join before doors close. It'll take you to this page right here. And all you're going to do is put in YouTube in all caps in here, and it's going to take off the $30 for you, okay? And it's going to be $67. So that is how you want to use that. Now, the reason why I'm telling you about Bomb CEO is because 1, you stuck it out with me till the end, but 2, if these brand building blocks were something that you feel as though you absolutely needed and you would love more clarity on each of these brand building blocks, you would love more clarity on, diving deeper into these things, doing the research. We had a full session on target audience where everybody left with their full target audience profile. That's done. We have a full session, like I told you, on customer journey and experience happening next week. This week, we have a full training on how to automate certain things so that way you can grow with less stress. Okay. We're talking all about the operational side of things and how you can merge operations with brand strategy to see maximum results. Not only that, but we are all about the strategies, the skill set, and the mindset. So we have a full habit challenge going on. We're reading a book called Atomic Habits together, and we are holding each other accountable with our bad habits that we want to break and replacing them with good habits. Okay. So it's really, really juicy. I'm going to show you just in case you thought I was capping about the length of the brand building blocks live so you can see it. I'm going to show you just in case you thought I was capping about it. I'll show you. I had to take my screen off because I don't want y'all to see the password there. Okay? But literally a full 2 hours all in detail about this, right? And then we had another, which I'm gonna take this off real quick. I'm gonna show you how detailed we got with our target audience. Deeply defining your target audience. I'm going to show you this. And we meet every Thursday, by the way. I'm going to show you this. When I hover over this, you can see it in the corner. It literally says 2 hours and 19 minutes. This is all target audience. We're working together. We're mapping out target audience together. I'm giving them the prompt. They're building out their profile. They're doing the whole nine. Okay. So definitely. And when you join Bomb CEO, you get access to all of the replays. So if you miss something, don't worry about it. You get access to all the replays. So Bomb CEO is something new. We started in June. And as you can see, we've already had a plethora of great sessions. They also have access to some bonus replays that we held in the past before we created Bomb CEO. And so you get access to all of this plus all the sessions that we have coming up for this week and next week. And if you use code YouTube all caps, you get to join for only $67, okay? But that's only for this week. All right. Let me see. We've been on here for an hour and a half, so it's about time for me to go. Yazzie Jazz said, great strategy. Thank you. Do you think it's better to show your face on YouTube videos, especially for somebody that does nails? I only film the nails. I mean, that depends. I would have to know more about your brand, your goals, and everything, honestly, to be able to give you that feedback. It'll be better if you can tell me more vocally. But I know you can't do that on YouTube Live. So if you do join Bomb CEO, our sessions are held on Zoom, and we use a collaborative feature where you can come off mute, you can come off video, you can show me things, you can ask things verbally. Because if you ask me a question, I don't give cookie cutter answers. So I need to ask a series of follow-up questions before I just throw cookie cutter advice at you, because then it won't work. It would be me wasting my breath and you wasting your time. So I want to give you specific answers to your specific questions, and that takes clarity. Any questions for me? Any other questions for me? This was great. Thank you. Is 4 product market value? No. It's not. 4 is purpose, mission, values, and vision. All right. Any other questions for me about anything that we talked about Bomb CEO or anything like that? I hope that this was super helpful and engaging and fun to be a part of with the Hustle Talks episode. If you missed this and you're watching the replay, shout out to you for being a part of the replay crew. If you are listening to this on a audio only platform, I hope that you enjoyed this live interaction type of session. After today, we are back to pre-recorded sessions, so super excited about that. So yeah, Amber said, do you offer coaching calls? Not at the moment. The only way that you can work with me, Amber, is by joining Bomb CEO and starting there. Okay. So that's the only way that you can work with me is by joining Bomb CEO and starting there. So I highly recommend if you're interested in a coaching call, you might as well join Bomb CEO because quite frankly, um, yeah, it's way more to work with me one on one, and we're not working with anyone right now. Um, Unless you go through Bomb CEO, they get preference because we're already full for our clients. But if you go through Bomb CEO, then you get preference. Um, Yazzie asked that, do you speak to other organizations as well? Yeah, I speak um at events, at trainings, even. Um, yeah, it just depends. Send an email to us. So you can send an email to, let me know when you're ready. You can send an email to management@thebrandhustler.com if you're interested in having me speak somewhere. Especially if it's virtual, I'm definitely down. So you're welcome, Amber. The nail lady said, understood and respected. Yes, ma'am, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I hate cookie cutter advice, so I try not to give it. you know, don't tell me what you think works for everybody else. Tell me what works for me based on my situation. So that's how I built Bomb CEO. That's why I built it to be this interactive weekly session vibe because if you have a question, I want to answer your question specifically. And I also have the ability because I it's an intimate group. I have the ability to learn about each individual's brands, their goals, and so as I'm teaching, I'm giving them specific examples to their brand. Like I literally just randomly say, okay, let me think of a random name. I literally think about, okay, Jenny, this is what I would do. What we're talking about today, this is what I would do for your brand. And I can give them specifics like that because I now know more about their brand. And every week we meet, and the more they share, the more we do these strategy sessions and activities and things like that together. The more we communicate in the group, the more I know them as my mentees within Bomb CEO, and the more I can actually put out great answers and great value. So all right, y'all. The link to join Bomb CEO will be in the description. I'll also make it a pinned comment. Remember to use code YouTube all caps if you want to join for $67 only for this week. So I will see y'all next time. Ciao.